Hashtag Jet Up got their first look at Aaron Rodgers and the Jets go up against somebody wearing a different colored jersey at Thursday joint practice against the Commanders. SNY NFL reporter Connor Hughes saw it all. He tweeted it all, and now he joins us from Jets practice facility with his takeaways from the joint practice. Connor, was it a joint practice or was it an MMA match like we saw at Giants-Lions on Monday and Tuesday?
No, this was a joint practice. In fact, Sauce Gardner was up on the podium and joked that Robert Saleh made it very clear to them in their pre-practice team meeting that there would be consequences to any player who got in a brawl like they saw across the town. So it was pretty even. I mean, there were a couple little pushes, a couple little shoves. Emmanuel Forbes, actually, I saw took a couple swings at Jets players, but the Jets pulled themselves away and just worked on practice. So honestly, from a joint practice perspective, I don't remember anyone being this tame. Maybe the Giants-Jets won a couple years ago, but this one was pretty laid back. Really was just two teams trying to get better.
All right, so we had a joint practice, not WWE SummerSlam. Let's get into the practice, though, because we've seen all throughout training camp your reports on Aaron Rodgers and this Jets offense. They got a chance to go against a different look and some different bodies today against the Commanders' defense. How'd Rodgers and the offense look?
Yeah, so they actually sat Rodgers for this practice. It was a monsoon here, man. I don't know what it's like over there at 4 World Trade, but it was coming down pretty good here in Florham Park. So Saleh said he woke up in the morning, basically saw the forecast, looked out his window, saw what his own eyes saw, and basically said, look, I'm not risking anything with Aaron Rodgers today, so we're going to go with Tyrod Taylor. Let him get some run with the starters, which could not only be beneficial for now, but down the road if Rodgers has to miss any time. But I will say that for the first team period, where it was the entire Jet starters, their starting offensive line, and then also, obviously, Tyrod Taylor, starting receivers, the running backs, all that stuff, they look pretty good. And I think what stood out to me more than anything else, aside from just Tyrod Taylor being a functional backup quarterback, probably the Jets' most functional they've had in quite some time since Josh McCown was backing up Sam Darnold, was that this reworked offensive line with Morgan Moses acquired via trade and Tyron Smith signed in free agency, they were moving people. They sprung Breece Hall for an 18-yard touchdown in team drills. Hall had another really nice run, and they were keeping guys off of Tyrod Taylor when he eventually found that Garrett Wilson in the corner of the end zone for a nice back shoulder touchdown. So no Rodgers, but the Jets offense when they had their starting offensive line in there, because eventually Moses and Smith worked off because Saleh didn't want to risk injuries to those guys either in these conditions. The offense looked pretty good even without Rodgers.
That's a great report because, remember, the Jets' offensive line was a question mark going into this season, and now it's looking like they're gelling together, especially with a bunch of veterans coming in and coming together on that line. The fact that Aaron Rodgers didn't practice today, we initially thought that he wasn't going to play a single snap in terms of a preseason game, but Robert Saleh told you guys, the media, that he's kind of maybe open to Aaron playing in the preseason finale game against the Giants. Can you give us some sort of context on his comments about Rodgers getting some game reps this preseason?
I think Aaron got in his ear a little bit and said, I want to play in the preseason, which makes sense. The last time Aaron Rodgers played a football game was 4 snaps of week 1 last year, and the only other football that he played besides that was a snap against the Giants in the preseason finale last year. So there is some rust that's going to have to be knocked off. That's not a bad thing. That's just the truth. And you can talk about joint practices, but there's a little bit of a difference between wearing the red non-contact jersey and then not wearing the red non-contact jersey. So Rodgers wants to get out there, he wants to take a couple hits, and Saleh might still ultimately rule no because we know how important Rodgers is to this team's hopes for this year. I mean, look, Tyrod Taylor might be able to get him to the playoffs, so Aaron Rodgers, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But I think this is just about him wanting to knock off some rust and get back out there and just see some live action, some live bullets, some real live reps. So, again, I want to make this clear. Even if he does play against the Giants in the finale, it's basically going to be what you saw last year. 1 series, maybe 2, and if he takes the Jets down for a touchdown like he did when he found Garrett Wilson in the end zone against the Giants, I think that'll be all for Aaron Rodgers, and they'll put him in bubble wrap then again until the regular season starts.
To go back to Garrett Wilson, I'm glad you just named him because I was looking at your tweets. It looked like he had himself a day-to-day. We were talking about him a couple days ago. Do you think that G5, this is his year to really have that breakout year in terms of being one of the top wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, what's wild to me is that he's had 1,000-yard seasons the last 2 years and established himself as one of the better receivers in the entire NFL with borderline inept quarterback play. I mean, Zach Wilson was bad. Tim Boyle was bad. I mean, there were a lot of issues with the Jets' offense the moment that Aaron Rodgers went down, yet Garrett Wilson still found a way to have success. And I think you got little glimmers of what he can really do during some of Mike White's games where he went in and gave the Jets some serviceable quarterback production. Aaron Rodgers, even at the age that he is, 40-something years old, he is still one of the most talented throwers of the football in the NFL. He hasn't gotten any dumber, so he's still one of the most witty players in the entire league. He's going to bring out a level of Garrett Wilson that we have not seen. And I thought what was pretty interesting today was for the first time this summer, we saw Garrett Wilson not going up against Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. Sauce Gardner might be one of the 2 or 3 best cornerbacks in the entire NFL. DJ Reed, a top 10 cornerback in his own right. He got a chance to go up against Emmanuel Forbes, not a top 10 corner in the NFL. And, dude, it was for lack of a better term, a bloodbath for portions out there. I mean, I think through the first 2-3 team periods, Garrett Wilson had 2 touchdowns, a sliding first down grab on the right side of the field that we saw, and then another long gain over the middle where he juked Forbes and kind of let him out there. And I know I joke with Jet fans all the time that I hate the saying iron sharpens iron, and I do. I absolutely hate the saying. Heard it enough from Saleh and the Jets that I don't need to hear it again. But what Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner have done for each other by going up against each other every day in practice, you're starting to see the benefits when the two go against somebody else. Because Sauce on the other side of the field completely locked down Scary Terry McLaurin for the Commanders, and then obviously we saw what Garrett was able to do.
We talked about 2 staples, 2 core players on this Jets team. And fantasy owners, go grab Garrett Wilson. I've been telling people he's going to have himself a huge year. Let's give the defense some love. How'd the defense look against Jayden Daniels and the Commanders' offense?
Yeah, so unfortunately the way the joint practices work is they have defense on one side of the field, offense on the other side of the field. So I was watching the offense the majority of the day. But during the drive the field drill where both teams come together, defense stood on its head. I think Washington went 3 and out, 4 and out. I'm sorry. They allowed them a chance to convert a 4th and 10, and it didn't work. So defense looks good. The secondary looks good. The pass rush, even without Hassan Reddick, looks good. And then we know what they're capable of there with 2 all-pro linebackers and C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams in the middle. So
has there been any word on how much the starters are going to get in terms of game action on Saturday?
Probably very little. So Roberts said he knows what he's going to do this weekend. He's not telling anyone what he's going to do yet just because he wants to tell the team. And what Roberts done before, remember he did this with Carl Lawson before, sometimes he won't necessarily tell the players that they're not playing just so that they can get the feeling of get up, get ready for a game, get out there in the game, and then once they get out on the field, he's like, okay, let's pull it back. You got the little dress rehearsal getting ready, but I'm not going to risk you on the field. Wouldn't surprise me to see Saleh do some things like that, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to see anyone who's anyone out there on the field for the Jets. To see a lot of the young guys, a lot of the guys in the roster bubble, a lot of the guys the Jets still want to evaluate playing. But the big guys, Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, Garrett Wilson, Sauce, I'd be very surprised if they saw a snap here within these first 2 preseason games. Not until the finale, the dress rehearsal against the Giants.
Connor Hughes, thanks for your time, my man.